Greg Hardy had a fight over the weekend, and they were asking about the fight right in the ring. Joe Rogan's interviewing him right in the ring. And Greg Hardy said something really cool. Cool in that it was really interesting, and it was very honest. And he said, I could hear Daniel Cormier commentating on the fight, and I started to take his advice, and I made adjustments. And Greg Hardy was telling the truth. He was just being a real candid, open guy. Now, that is a tremendous compliment. I mean, tremendous to Daniel. I hope that made Daniel feel good. If that did not make Daniel feel good, then he misinterpreted Greg Hardy's words, because that is, come on, I heard an announcer who, by the way, happens to be the number one contender, by the way, in the division that I'm in, a fellow heavyweight. Out of respect to his mind and his knowledge and the vision of what he's having, I started to listen and change my game plan based on what he's saying. I'm like, is there a bigger compliment that Greg could have inadvertently handed Daniel? I don't think so. Now, I'm not sure Daniel did hear it the right way. It turned out there was 2 other fighters, believe this or not, 2 other fighters came out, said the same thing. They weren't in the same weight class, but they said I could hear Daniel. Now, that's a respect like possibly has never been shown in these whole times that we're in right now. Daniel came out and spoke on it, though, and Daniel said, hey, I got to start keeping my voice down, or we need to go into a different room. We need to call this from a monitor in a different room. I only bring that to you because I think perhaps Daniel missed the compliment that he's being handed. Daniel's done nothing wrong. The athletes did nothing wrong. I mean, this is a knife that cuts both ways. Both guys can hear it. Both guys have an opportunity to have, I guess, what you're calling an extra cornerman. I mean, essentially, they're treating them like a cornerman. If anybody got disrespected here, it was their actual cornerman. It wasn't Daniel. Daniel's getting this huge compliment, but it does beg the question, what do you do moving forward? Now, in my opinion, it's real cut and dry. You don't do anything. What are you talking about? There's nothing to see here. Guys calling a fight. Turns out the audience is quiet. What's that got to do with anything? The audience is full. Guys calling a fight. You don't hear them. You do hear them. What if you're in a smaller show? They're still regulated by the same commissions. A lot of those smaller shows have poor attendance. Generally, they don't have an announcer to the caliber of Daniel Cormier, but I'm just saying it's same. If you hear a guy and you choose to go off it, if you have a parent in the front row or a friend or a fan or some stranger and you hear him, you know what I'm saying? You have the right to hear different things. I will tell you, coaching can be a very interesting thing from the corner, okay? When you're in a huge arena with 14,000 screaming people at the end of the night after there's been a couple of beverages going around, it can be very hard for your athlete to hear you. You can't possibly scream any louder. You get in the back and you can barely talk. You're raspy. Your voice is gone. And then you're frustrated that your athlete didn't respond to what you're doing. And your athlete's real sad. I couldn't hear you. It's on the other side of the cage. Anytime I heard you, I listened. I was respectful. I couldn't hear you, coach. Okay. That's fair. I mean, that's just the way it is. There's no way around that. Okay, now let's take the other side of the coin, which is you're in an empty building. I'll use myself, for example, and personalize this, but on The Ultimate Fighter. The Ultimate Fighter, this is exactly what you go through. You walk in there, red corner, blue corner, coach, you hear everything. And that can be a little bit weird. The sound of your own voice while giving instruction can be a very weird thing. There's some parts of it where you think, well, I don't want everybody to hear this. This is private. Am I saying the right things? Do I sound like a fool? I mean, you're still a human being. You still got some of these self-cautious attributes and aspects that come with it. That's just very real. I would just tell you this. If Daniel thinks that Daniel needs to be in a different room or Daniel believes he needs to lower his voice, I would strongly disagree. First off, Daniel was complimented. They were showing him respect to the highest of levels for who he is and what he's achieved and his knowledge of the sport. But secondly, Daniel does have a job to coach. And full arena, empty arena, Daniel does have a job to coach. He's coaching you. He's coaching the viewer. He's coaching the audience. He's coaching the little old lady in Iowa who's never seen this sport before. He's educating as to what the nuances are and what's happening. He's predicting whether the guy is going to go left, the guy's going to go right, the guy's going to push his hips in, get his head up, get his arm out. He's coaching, and then he's also trying to predict what the manipulation is, what position they're looking for, what combinations work. So Daniel is a coach. That's true. But there's nothing inappropriate with that. And if somebody is smart enough, conscious enough, observant enough to hear him and adapt, like, say, Greg Hardy, that's fair play.